These are the high-stakes naval encounters that transformed the North Atlantic into a 21st century battleground over critical undersea cable infrastructure, where Russian spy ships met their match against Western naval power. This is the story of how a shadow war beneath the waves escalated into the most significant maritime standoff since the Cold War. In the frigid waters off Scotland in November 2025, the Russian spy ship Yantar pushed deeper into British territorial waters than any hostile vessel in decades. What happened next would reshape naval warfare forever. But to understand this confrontation, we need to examine the sophisticated Russian intelligence operation that brought us to this point. An operation that began in earnest after the Nord Stream pipeline sabotage shocked the world in September 2022. The Yantar isn't just any ship. This Project 22010 class vessel, built in 2015 for Russia's main Directorate of Deep Sea Research, known by its Russian acronym GUGI, represents the cutting edge of underwater espionage. Operating from Russia's secretive Olenya Guba naval base on the Kola Peninsula, this vessel acts as a mothership for specialized submersibles capable of reaching depths of 6,000 meters, allowing the Yantar to access and potentially sabotage the undersea infrastructure that our modern world depends on. Consider this sobering reality. 99% of the UK's digital communications flow through undersea cables. Globally, 1.3 million kilometers of these cables secure an estimated $10 trillion worth of financial transactions every day. More than 95% of all internet traffic travels through these vulnerable links stretched across ocean floors. The Yantar's mission was to map, monitor, and potentially compromise this critical infrastructure. GUGI operates more than 50 ships, submarines, and floating dry docks dedicated to this underwater espionage. Their most famous vessel, a submarine called Losherick, named after a cartoon horse, features an unusual titanium hull construction that allows it to dive to extraordinary depths. After returning to sea trials in 2025, following a devastating 2019 fire, the Losherick operates from its mother submarine BS 64 Pod Moscovy. This fleet represents Russia's most closely guarded military secret, designed specifically to threaten the undersea cables and pipelines that connect the Western world. The signs of escalation had been building throughout 2024 and 2025. In October 2023, the new Polar Bear, part of Russia's Shadow Fleet, was discovered with a missing anchor after damaging a Baltic Sea gas pipeline. Then came the systematic cable-cutting campaign. On November 17th and 18th, 2024, two submarine telecommunication cables were severed in the Baltic Sea in near-simultaneous attacks. The BCS East-West Interlink and Sea Lion 1 fiber optic cables were cut in what European officials immediately recognized as hybrid warfare. Intelligence sources later identified the Chinese vessel Yipeng 3 as a key suspect, highlighting the growing cooperation between Russia and China in undersea operations. But the most brazen attack came on Christmas Day, 2024. The Russian oil tanker Eagle S dragged its anchor for almost 66 miles across the Baltic Sea floor, severing the Estlink 2 cable connecting Finland and Estonia, along with 4 additional data cables. Finnish forces boarded the vessel the next day, finding clear evidence of deliberate sabotage. NATO's response was swift and decisive. On January 14, 2025, the alliance launched Baltic Sentry, deploying frigates, maritime patrol aircraft, and cutting-edge naval drones throughout the region. Standing NATO Maritime Group, one coordinated with the newly established NATO Maritime Center for Security of Critical Undersea Infrastructure to create an unprecedented surveillance network. 20 unmanned surface vehicles immediately joined the operation, creating comprehensive coverage across the Baltic Sea. Meanwhile, thousands of miles away in the North Atlantic, another drama was unfolding. The U.S. Coast Guard had been pursuing a Russian-flagged oil tanker called Bella 1 since December 2025. This vessel, part of Russia's sanctions-evading Shadow Fleet, had been attempting to transport Venezuelan oil in violation of international sanctions. The chase became a cat-and-mouse game across the Atlantic. As Coast Guard cutter Monroe closed in, the tanker's crew desperately tried to change their vessel's identity. They painted over the name Bella 1 and hastily added Marinera to the hull. On December 31st, in an act of desperation, they sloppily painted a Russian flag on the ship's side. That same day, Moscow sent a formal diplomatic protest to Washington, demanding the Americans halt their pursuit. The legal implications were staggering. By January 1st, 2026, the vessel appeared in Russian maritime registries as Marinera, creating a complex jurisdictional nightmare. Was this a stateless vessel subject to seizure, or a Russian-flagged ship protected by international maritime law? The question would soon be answered with military force. Back in British waters, HMS Somerset had been shadowing the Yantar for 8 days when the situation reached a breaking point. As the Russian spy ship lingered north of Scotland, mapping undersea cable routes, its crew made a fatal error. They directed high-powered lasers at RAF P-8 Poseidon aircraft, tracking their movements, a dangerous and provocative act that crossed every red line. This is a vessel designed for gathering intelligence and mapping our undersea cables, declared UK Defence Secretary John Healey. We deployed a Royal Navy frigate and RAF P-8 planes to monitor and track this vessel's every move, during which the Yantar directed lasers at our pilots. So my message to Russia and to Putin is this: we see you, we know what you're doing, but if the Yantar travels south this week, we are ready. The laser attack wasn't the only provocation. Ships in the area, including HMS Somerset, experienced GPS jamming and AIS spoofing emanating from the Russian vessel. This electronic warfare represented a clear escalation in hostile activities within British territorial waters. But the most dramatic moment came when a Royal Navy nuclear submarine suddenly surfaced near the Yantar, breaching the waves in a powerful demonstration that the Russians were being watched by forces they couldn't detect. The standoff intensified when intelligence revealed that Russian submarines were attempting to escort both the Yantar and the fleeing Marinera. 2 Russian military aircraft conducted overflights of the Coast Guard cutter Monroe, testing American resolve. But Coast Guard Commandant Admiral Kevin Lunde was clear. At no time was the Coast Guard concerned at all about Russian military presence interfering with our legal authority. On January 7, 2026, the maritime chess game reached its climax. In international waters between Iceland and Scotland, U.S. Navy SEALs launched from Army Night Stalker helicopters and boarded the Marinera. The operation, conducted in treacherous North Atlantic conditions, successfully seized the vessel despite Russian diplomatic protests and submarine escorts lurking beneath the surface. One of these tankers, motor tanker Bella I, has been trying to evade the Coast Guard for weeks, announced Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem. The heroic crew of the USCGC Monroe pursued this vessel across the high seas and through treacherous storms, keeping diligent watch and protecting our country with the determination and patriotism that make Americans proud. The seizure sent shockwaves through Moscow. Russia's Ministry of Transport declared the boarding violated international law, citing the UN Convention on the Law of the Sea. But legal experts noted the vessel's questionable registration status created legitimate grounds for the American action. These confrontations triggered a fundamental shift in Western naval strategy. The UK unveiled its groundbreaking Atlantic Bastion program, a comprehensive undersea warfare initiative connecting ships, submarines, aircraft, and unmanned vessels through AI-powered acoustic detection technology. This pioneering network represents the future of maritime defense, allowing real-time targeting decisions against underwater threats. NATO expanded Baltic Sentry operations throughout 2026, deploying advanced drone boats and surveillance technology across northern European waters. Intelligence tracking revealed over 50 suspected Russian spy ships operating in the region, conducting systematic reconnaissance of undersea infrastructure and renewable energy installations. The North Atlantic Standoff of 2025 to 2026 marked the end of an era when critical infrastructure could be threatened with impunity. Western navies demonstrated they possessed both the capability and resolve to protect the undersea cables and pipelines that modern civilization depends upon. The shadow war beneath the waves had been brought into the light, and Russia's underwater espionage operations had met their match. First, Sea Lord General Sir Gwyn Jenkins captured the new reality perfectly. Russian activity is the most visible sign of Russian operations near UK waters. But it's what's going on under the waves that most concerns me. The invisible battlefield beneath our oceans had become the most critical theater of 21st century warfare, and the West had finally chosen to fight back.